Barry, thank you so much for joining me on this incredible experiment that I'm going on. Welcome.
Looking forward to it, Joe. It'll be interesting what comes up.
Yeah, look, here's the thing, right? I'm going to give you some context here. I'm planning on writing this book. What's it like to live from your heart, a complete, aligned life full of abundance with limited possibilities? But I realized that kind of sounds way out there, like in the future, right up here. And a lot of people are sitting at the moment just feeling this kind of unease and like, even guilt, I've got this great life, but I feel something's missing. Like, should I just suck it up? And I'm the way I'm structuring the book is I'm talking about this awareness state and then taking people to that awakening state with some tools and things they can use, and then taking people to that activation state, how they can live in that. And then, potentially there's actualization or whatever it is beyond that. But it made me think about a discussion that you and I had like almost 5 years ago when the incredible Martine introduced us. And I recalled that you had been talking me through, some of your work and how, where you see humanity and people's individual experiences and how you use a certain methodology in doing that. And I just have to say personally, like, thank you. When I was locked in my room, suffering the dreaded virus back in 2020, I did your vision course about having clearer eyesight vision and then leading to clearer vision in all things. So first of all, thank you for that. But
Look,
yeah,
you're
I was
welcome.
really excited to chat to you.
Look, it is an exciting topic, and eyesight was where I originally started.
Yeah,
And just to sort of give you some background, where I was at, this is only 10 years ago now,
yeah.
is I'd done a lot of spiritual work. Like I'd improved my eyesight. I found a brain tumor in the middle of the brain, so that sort of was the setback. And I was meditating and doing all the right things, and doing all the high vibrational aspects. And yet, I found myself 10 years ago, even though I thought that I had raised my vibration really high, I was in a situation where I was now divorced, out of a relationship, out of money, not really living my purpose, struggling with work. And my health was really struggling because I actually had another operation and had some really severe setbacks because of these operations. So I was in a state of really struggling, saying, what's going on here? If you're supposed to be, spiritual and then everything turns up, where is it? Where's my stuff?
Mm. It's interesting.
And
Can I just look
yeah,
quantify this?
sure.
So I think you and I have something in similar here. In 2019, I was diagnosed with a pituitary gland tumor.
Yep, that's the one I had as well. Yes.
So it's 1 in 1,000,000, right? There's only like 25 of us in Australia. So there
Wow.
you go. So isn't that
That's pretty
interesting that
cool.
it was kind of, I guess that is part of that kind of awakening period for both of us.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, when you had your first one, but mine was back in 93. And they literally wanted to go through the brain and open my whole brain up. It was like really barbaric. By 2008, they got a bit more civilized and there was less invasive techniques available at that point.
Yeah, mine just went up through my nose and grabbed it and came
Yeah,
down. Yeah.
that's what they ended up doing ultimately. Yeah.
And I just sharing something here, but one of the things that I did, like, I was a week before the operation. I thought, being someone who likes hacking success, I thought, I wonder if I can hack a successful operation. And a friend of mine, Medine, I was chatting to her and she said, oh, look, I'm going to this like day meditation thing. And this guy has, cured himself of all these, cancers and things, but, come along and do some meditation. I was like, oh, okay. But in the break, I met his wife, who was a GP. And I said to her, is there a book you'd recommend? Because I'm going to surgery. And she recommended a book and I downloaded the visualization. And the visualization for surgery was, visualize that the surgeon's going into the area where the issue is, the blood moves away, the surgeon can easily take out everything that's the problem, and good blood comes back and it, it rejuvenates the area well. And it's funny, they wheeled me into the operation, and all their operations during the day had gone late, and they wheeled me in at 6 o'clock. It was supposed to be a 3-4 hour operation, and at 8 o'clock I've woken up in the recovery, and I said, and the neuroscience there, and I'm still on morphine, and they try to talk to you at that time. And I said, oh my God, did something go wrong? It's only 2 hours. And he said, it was the most amazing surgery ever. I cut in there and the blood moved away, and I cut out the tumor, and it was just like, great. I said, oh, I did that. He said, no, I'm the neurosurgeon. I did that.
Yeah, I know. We had
And I was
discussions
like,
about
oh, I told him subsequently about it. He's like, I think I might tell my other clients about this patients, because it made surgery so easy. So, yeah, that kind of meditation, it kind of gave me a validation of how we can control even our physical.
Sure.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
Yeah, no, totally. I get that. And I remember I actually ended up telling the surgeon where all the nurses were, who was in the room, what was happening. And I had a bird's eye view at one point, explaining to them what was going on during the operation. So,
Okay, so you're definitely awakened. So let's come back to the awareness part. So you 10 years ago, it was the eyesight, and
yeah, look, I'd managed to get out of glasses through natural means, and I'd set up a business called iPower, which was really a vision improvement service.
yeah.
But I was still trying to work out this thing about, why was I not in a relationship, have enough money, my health was struggling. And my father passed away, and I ended up with about $20,000 at the end of all this, like even my siblings took me to court, and it was like really messy. And people said, well, you should invest this money. And I
Yeah.
said, I'm going to invest it by taking myself around the world. And I took myself around the world and met some amazing people, some people who are famous, and really in particular, some people who no one knows about, who I just happened to meet at certain points.
Yeah.
And I came home and I realized that there was a difference for me between vibration and frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And that difference has changed everything in my life when we can understand and work on both vibration and frequency.
Can I just take you back? When you went on that trip, did you set an intention to open yourself up to these experiences? Like, were you very intentional
Oh,
on
yeah.
those introductions? Because I think
Yeah.
playing with that sense of intention too.
Yeah. The intent was that I wanted a sacred journey.
Right.
And so the two things I was after was a sacred journey and fun. Like everything that I did, if it didn't hit fun or being sacred, I didn't do.
Got it.
And I also had a yes policy. So if I was invited to something and it was on my way, I said yes to it. So it was really about extending my boundaries about, what I was comfortable or not comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Cool. Wow. Okay,
Mm.
great intentions. And so you
Oh,
came
look,
back,
it's great.
you
Yeah.
came back with this frequency and vibration, understanding
So
there's
I
a
came back, well, I came back with a recognition that the two were separate.
yeah,
And so when I sat with it, I looked at vibration to start with, because that's the obvious one. That's the one we all hear about. And there was a man by the name of David Hawkins who brought out the Hawkins scale they talk about, which was really a scale from 0 to 1,000. And the idea is we try to get as high as we can on the scale, recognizing that most of us were probably around about 500. That's
okay.
where people were getting to.
I'm gonna go find this, and I'm gonna bring it up whilst you're talking to it. Okay.
I've actually got your numbers in front of me, so there you go.
Oh, because I know that you
I
did
found
this
them.
for me previously. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
here we
I will
go.
look at those shortly. I'll
I'm
explain
gonna,
the outline, then
yeah,
I'll go
is
specific.
this, can you see this? Is this kind of right?
Yeah, this is sort of it. I think the fifth dimension at 540 is, I think it's actually higher than that, to be quite honest.
Okay, all
But
right.
the
So the
numbers on the
concept,
left, the numbers on the right, 550 is about inner love, and 600 gets to peace and presence. That's really the two
okay,
numbers that we're
a
looking for.
little bit different.
And they talked about Buddha and Jesus and all these being in the 800s, 900s, really enlightened people.
Wow. Okay, so
Now,
if we start down here, is this like a measurable vibration? Like you
yeah,
can,
this is where the
is it like
planet was 2,000 years
scientifically?
ago.
scientifically vibration measurement, or is this kind of a intuitive vibration? Like, how is that?
It was done through a kinesiology group.
Mhm.
And so it's been measured by more than one person. And
Okay.
when I work, I often get other people to measure it as well. So it's not just me saying things.
Okay. And
And
so this
so
is
we've got to
kind of like
remember,
where we are.
well, where we are at the moment, and this is the interesting thing, 2000 years ago, we had these divine people at 800,
Mm-hmm.
and the planet was about 20 or 30. They're still shooting each other and
Oh,
killing
right.
each other for
Okay.
food and
Yeah.
doing all of that. So the gap between where the Buddha and the Jesus and those sort of people, the gap between them and everyone else was such a huge gap.
Mm,
And then over the years, they said if we could get the planet above 200, that would start to make a real change on the planet.
right.
Like that was the line. Now, to me, I think 500 would be a great number.
Yeah,
But
let's go high.
but 200, we got the average on the planet as 200, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Now, what happened is I've been measuring this over the last 3,000 years, and we've measured dates. And I had a religious historian come up to me, and all the numbers I had for various time periods over the last 3,000 years, he was able to say, yes, the peak was because of this happened, or if it didn't
Okay.
grow much, it was because of this, these things happened in the world. So it was fascinating to have a look at how the changes occurred until the year 2000, where we actually reached the number 197.
Oh, okay. So in 2000 years, we've gone from 20 to 197.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
But
Okay.
it's still consider we've been around for 20,000, 100,000
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
a big jump.
And the correlation, isn't that interesting that there was this, the correlation was so obvious between major worldwide events or
Oh, it was
enlightenment or
fascinating. Like we had a great time. We went for hours talking about, different
imagine.
periods and historical periods of, reformations and all these things where we'd jump or would not jump because people were shooting each other still and things like that.
Okay, so if the
But
if
what,
the, if we're at this 200, where's
yeah,
most of
well, no,
most
we weren't.
people?
We were 197 in the year
Okay,
2000. That's where we're at.
got it.
So 197, and then in 2023, at the end of 2023, when I started measuring this really seriously,
Mm,
the number on the planet was 199.
mm.
So in the first quarter of this century, we've gone from 197 to 199. In other words, with all the big advancements that we think we've had,
Mhm,
it's only gone up 3 points
mhm, mhm.
until the beginning of last year.
So 25 years, we've gone up 3 points. Okay.
Yeah, right. Now, what's fascinating is on the 1st of January, and I didn't expect the 1st of January. I'm not one for believing things happen on
Mhm.
a certain date, but on the 1st of January, when I measured it, it came out at 200 for the first time last year,
2024. Okay, wow. Which is kind of like the
2024.
number of where big
Yeah.
ships are, right?
That's the number where they think things are going to start moving,
Uh-huh.
right? And in actual fact, it stayed at 200 until only a few months ago in November of 24.
Mhm.
And then this is after the US election. So, I was expecting not much to happen after that. But after the US elections, and because of the need for a change on the planet, the vibration on the planet went from 200 to 204,
Ooh, in 1 year,
right?
in less than a year, it went up four. Okay.
Less than a year.
And this has been like other people have come and said, we've measured
Yes.
this. Okay,
Yes.
so this is
Yeah,
like,
I've got my whole team who've measured. We've measured this
okay,
forever.
other people say, all right, so we're over that 200 mark.
We're over the 200, but I think is even more fascinating is that we went all of a sudden in a month, we went from 200 to 204.
Yeah,
Because in October, we're still at 200.
yeah.
And then we've hit 204. Now, by 230, I'd say 250, because I thought, where are we going to be in the next quarter of a century?
2050, yeah.
2050, the number that's coming up is somewhere between 230 and 250. So an average 240.
Wow. something big.
It is massive what's going to be happening over the next few years.
Okay. All right.
And
Okay. So let me just think of this in context of where we are in the according to this David Hawkins scale and people who can receive this information or get this information, we have this process over 2,000 years where we've got up from like 20 to 197, and then in 3 years we've gone from 197 to 200, and in about a month we've
well,
gone
in actual fact, more than 3 years. That was really 24 years it took us to get
oh
from.
24 years. Okay, 24 years for the three, and now within like a month we've like popped over this 200 mark. So if I kind of correlate this to what I'm feeling and sensing, where I'm talking to so many people going, there's an unease, there's a like, is this it? Are we on the right path? And there's all these wars and geotensions
Totally.
and like, is this kind of is this kind of correlating to that? Like people are feeling like, where
Totally.
are most people in that scale? Are people also on the scale of 200 in the world, or are people individually? Can be measured individually? I know you did
Oh,
that.
we do. And I measure individually. So my programs, they need actually to be around 500 to get into the program. Like,
Right.
we're
And where
talking
are
about
most people? Where's 500? Where are most
mo
people?
most people are still less than, well, the average is still that 200. So
Okay.
depending on where you are in the world, you would have people still down around 50 to 100 to 150, like
And can
that
you
is sort of
correlate that to different, like, I don't know,
different
professions
countries would
or
have different
countries?
things. Exactly. They would have different things depending on the energy of how much they're opening. You said it right at the start. A really key word that you said was awareness. You had this
Mm,
awareness. And even though there's a lot of strife out in the world at the moment, to me, this is still about awareness that people are saying, we want something more than what we've got at the moment. We want to
mm,
start making change. We want to start being the light in the world. We've come here to lighten the world, not to bring it down.
mm,
And there's an old paradigm, if you like, of people and a lot of old politicians out there, etc., where they're just hanging on to the old paradigm.
mm,
And what we're finding is that they won't be able to hang on to it. They're trying to have a tight grip on it, and it's not working.
mm,
So there's a short-term pain, I think, associated with that for a lot of us. But I see that what this is really, it's like a 5-year-old who's been told to play with their toys,
yeah,
doesn't want to, but at some point they have to play with their toys.
yeah. Okay.
It has that sort of a change.
Mm,
Now, if we have this change, and one of the things I do agree with the chart that was there, is we are making this transformation from 3D into 5D. And
mm,
so that means just a higher consciousness that we're all going to have.
okay.
Now, is everyone on the planet going to have that? No,
Okay. All right.
right?
Okay.
So there will be people on the planet, and I actually see in the testing that I've done that 5D, really we want to get over 1,000.
And can
Because
you
when the
get over
David
a
Hawkins
thousand?
scale was done,
Is there over a
yes,
thousand? Wow. Okay.
yes, I'm currently have trained over 200 people to be over 1,000.
Ooh.
And this wasn't available when David Hawkins did this 40 years ago because the planet wasn't ready for it. And
Wow.
we couldn't do it then. Like 10 years ago, I would have said this was impossible. 1,000's it. But we actually have people now well over 1,000.
And what do you
And
call
we
that?
actually meet sorry,
What do you call that? What's over a thousand?
pretty cool group.
People I want to know. World
Yeah,
changes.
no, honestly, it is such a cool group to have. Like every fortnight, we come together and I run a program, and we're actually looking at the galactic council. We're looking at how the various star seeds work and how that supports us at this high vibrational level.
Right.
So only people who have a vibration over 1,000 can get into this class.
And the
And that's
fact
why
that,
I ran Life Vision Mentoring to get
Well,
I
the fact
guarantee
that we
people in
had the
6 months.
spiritual leaders at 800, but the difference was 800 basically,
Yeah,
and now we're
yeah,
at 500. So I'm imagining the spiritual leaders are at the kind of 1300 or above, like that. Just
well above, yes,
yeah, wow. Okay, interesting.
because this is exponential. So what this is saying to me is that we are now have the capacity, us ordinary people, not just the few people out there, the Buddhas and the Jesus out there, but we all have that capacity to get over in 1,000. And I actually literally know hundreds of people who have a vibration over 1,000. And I think that's a pretty cool. And what that means is that life just flows better. Like we respond to life rather than react. An example for me is Nancy and I went around the world for 2 months, and we're at airports. And whenever there was a security, we either had no line, or if we're in a line, they would call us out personally and start a new line with us.
Oh, wow. That's the way to travel.
Like that was sort of how it happens. The magic in life just starts,
So
occurring. And
can I just bring this back? So you mentioned vibration and frequency being different. We've talked about vibration. I want to get back to that, but how does frequency overlay with that? Like, what's that mean?
yeah, that's my point. So with the vibration, I used the David Hawkins scale and expanded that for above 1,000. That's what I
Uh-huh.
did.
Uh-huh.
When I looked at frequency, now vibration's about our beingness, our connection to spirit. Our frequency is our outer world. It's our doingness. So it's really got to do with money, health, relationships, and living our purpose. How
Mm,
can we attract people that we go to work with, make money, relationships, and look after our health?
mm,
And there was nothing out there.
mm.
So I actually had to create that. And so I created a chart that simply went from 0 to 100, nice simple maths for me. And thinking if we get to 100, that would be it. A bit similar. I thought getting to 1,000 would be it on the David Hawkins scale. Now, what happens with frequency is when you get above 100, you actually move from the traditional frequency to a high conscious frequency. And then that number goes up to 1,000. So it actually correlates with the vibration
And
at a
that's the
higher conscious frequency.
external manifestation of your
Yeah,
internal state. So it's like everything. So when I'm talking about creating a book of living from your heart and living the infinite possibilities of a life of abundance in all areas, this is like 100 and above on the
yeah,
frequency.
totally. You have to be.
Okay.
If you're not doing that, I wouldn't do it.
So do
And
the
what
internal work
happens,
and then have the external manifestation.
yep, and the key to this and the way I've lived my life is I have fundamental basis that's spiritually based, spiritually grounded in who I am and what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And my purpose is to help bring light in the world.
Mhm.
My goal is to have 700 people above 1,000, because that will then have an impact on the entire planet.
Mm.
Right. And so I'm staying here until I get over 700 people, and we're expanding the numbers of people who are doing the program, which I call Life Vision Mentoring, until we can get to the stage where we've got each person over 1,000, and then they have an impact of 10 million people on the planet. That's what it measures at. And so you have a bigger impact. We get 700 people, then we've had a global positive impact on the world.
Wow.
And
Good.
I
And,
think
and,
that's
and I
the
imagine
legacy
it
I'm
does
going to
it
leave.
does it happen like if a person's vibration goes up does it pull up their frequency? Like is it always like this or can you be
No,
think?
most people are out of sync, by the way. They'll have one up and one high. So we all know people who are really spiritual, but they're broke and they're,
Yeah.
don't
There's a
have any
lot of
money.
people like
We
that.
also know
Incredible
people who
people.
have a lot of money and maybe aren't the nicest of people all the time. So they're able to manifest it. So
Got it.
this is about your ability to manifest in the world. The vibration is an internal. Now we want both. We want,
Mm.
ideally, we want our vibration high and our frequency high. And when I did both of those, what happens is you start creating this vortex in your life where magic happens.
Bring on the
So it
vortex.
is about having both. Yeah. And so what I'm working with now with people is keeping people in the vortex full time
Okay,
so
so
that we can
completely
be in that.
actualize. So when I talk in the book about that, awareness, awakening, activation, like you're acting, and this is like the unconsciousness of just being, like in the flow, in the
Totally.
vortex, it all just comes. Ooh, okay. And is there any, I mean, obviously you've got a whole program behind this, but is there, which will include below the video, or whoever's watching this in any place, go and check it out. But just so I'm getting this, is that the frequency, raising the frequency and raising the vibration, are there different things you need to do that?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, and they are interrelated, but the two key ones to get started, so that people
Yeah.
listening can get started tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Me.
The first for the first for vibration is meditation every day.
Uh-huh.
Like that is the easiest way to start raising your vibration is by meditating.
Uh-huh.
In terms of frequency, the easiest way to raise your frequency is through gratitude.
Mm.
And it's really hard to be feeling bad and grateful at the same time.
Mm.
So the gratitude is one of the best ways to get it up. Now, the other way is what I call emotional stability, which is a program that we teach within the Life is Your Mentoring, to how to stay emotionally stable even when things happen in life still. We get pushed and we get our buttons pushed and people
Trigger.
die and all that.
Mm.
Life still's going to happen. I'm not saying we're going to be like, oh, it's all bliss now. We're able to handle it a lot better than maybe in the past. And
Okay,
that's
interesting. That's great. So, it's the two of things that are hitting me. First is I'm thinking about all the people I've had these conversations with, and I'm seeing a lot of people that I'm connected with who might be, a lawyer or a photographer, or all these different professions, and then all of a sudden they've started talking about their journey to meditation or conscious thinking, or there is this kind of awakening that's happening. And I love the fact that there's people in all these different areas, and almost sometimes unexpected areas. Like, even, I've got a mentoring client who's a GP who is writing a book about qigong and the power of, harnessing your internal energy for health and mental health and, emotional resilience and everything. The people who are looking at these allied kind of mechanisms, and it's not expensive. There's breath work, there's meditation, and there's gratitude. There's like drink some water, like walking. None of this is, we don't need to have to go and buy something expensive.
Now, I even have a YouTube channel called Life Vision Academy, and I have free programs on there where we get to clear blocks
Yeah.
to enable some of this to happen. So that is available to everyone. Like I believe we should have access depending on what we can pay. And obviously I can't have every person knocking on my door and working with them individually.
Yeah.
But there's information available to start with on YouTube. There's low-end costs. And then people can dive into the mentoring program and then ultimately to global when they've got a vibration above 1,000. So
So
wherever you feel like you fit, there's an option there to fit in.
yeah, and I mean, that's what I really want to do with this book, or the exploration that could become a book. Who knows? I have no attachment. Maybe it's not. And these interviews with people, is that there's so much knowledge. No, there's so much wisdom in the world, and
Sure.
everyone's got just this little bit. And every time I speak to someone, I'm just completely in awe of their magnificence and their genius. But there's all these little, linkages, even to the extent when you talked about, these people of this higher realm at the moment who are, off operating. I spoke to someone about his exploration and in India, and he talked about meeting living saints today who have this ability to, do the most incredible magic. I'm going to call it magic. And so there's these people who are walking amongst us, right? Who are at this incredible level, who are, bringing that change to the world right now, and being able to magnify that and pull them together in, that group of 700, and being able to actualize those. That's extraordinary what could happen in the world.
And it is happening. I see it happening, and I see these people. My goal is that these people surpass me, because that's how we can have a bigger influence in the
Of
world
course,
as well.
yeah. Okay, so a few years ago you measured my level. Now you said you've
Oh,
got it. I'd love to know where I was. Maybe we can even see where I am now. But
yep.
yeah, because
So we're
this.
going to do that now. I would just before I do that, I just had a thought when you're talking about this book and you're not sure about the
Mm,
book. My advice for you is yes, the book is important,
mm.
and you can put in links where all these videos can be available as they read the book. They can pull the links up for get the
Yeah, and
videos.
and the reason I did this kind of experiment was I don't like writing in solitude. I don't enjoy writing. I get, and often it's Sunday mornings, funnily enough, well here we are, kind of, I get these kind of information, and I kind of do like a stream of consciousness investigation and research, and then I like linking things and then writing about that. But this whole concept of people have a book, and at the back of the book there's a course, and then they can do the course. It got me thinking, well, if people are going to have to wait a year for like the latest technology and information because I'm a slow writer, why not give them
Sure.
access to it now? And so I've got, the group, the Exit the Matrix writing experiment group, where people are joining me and doing experiments and doing, which I'd love to see what experiment we could come up with, people, but aligned to what you're talking about, but also listening to these interviews, because they're getting the wisdom now. And it's almost like you have a course now, right? You don't wait for
Yeah.
the book to come out and then wait to buy the course. Like now you're actually living it. And rather than being an authority who writes this is the way, people kind of going on the journey with me and, experiencing what I'm experiencing. And if the book doesn't even turn into a book, or it changes completely, it's the journey of actually bringing all this together that excites me.
And it's actually what I did when I came home from that, 10 years ago, I've been overseas. I came home, and this Life Vision mentoring program was really just me. I was I was ground zero. I worked on myself for 6 months,
Yeah.
and then people noticed and said, "What's different about you? What have you done?" And then I actually ran the very first program. It was really family and friends time,
Yeah, yeah.
and they had success. And we're actually up to the 19th version of it at the moment, because it's just kept going.
What I love is that you
And
started with like the physical eye vision, and then you've turned it into life vision. Like
yes,
it's just so in flow, right?
and so it really also, the other interesting thing is, when I was 36, and I'm very big on 9 years, and so it was 36. I'd set up iPower. At 45, I'd set up the conversations game, which is, the game that's over there.
Okay.
And
What's
and
that?
so I set that up. It's a board game created called Conversations, which is another whole story.
Okay, yeah, right.
And then
I have to look
and
at
then
that.
that was at 45. At uh, 54, I set up a vision school, and that's when I started running these programs. And last year I turned 63, and I've rebranded it to Life Vision Academy.
I'm
And it's like
54.
the
Maybe
next
I'm
year.
doing things in nines as well.
So it is an interesting journey watching I'm almost excited to see what's going to happen when I'm 72 now,
I
like over the next.
know, I know, I love that. I love that. Yeah, because
I'm going to come to you if you like. If you're happy to have your numbers, I'll give you your numbers. And I just want people, before I do it, is these numbers are very individual.
Mm,
So one thing I don't normally do, and I wouldn't have a group of people and let's measure everyone's numbers to see who's the highest, because we're all on a path.
yeah, of course.
So I just want to acknowledge that we're all on a path, and numbers are what numbers you have. That's it.
Now,
And what's
not fun.
interesting is when I measured you last year, and I did measure you last year,
Mm.
um, your vibration was at 600, and it is still at 600. Now, 600 is good. Like, I don't want to discount these numbers, but 600 is really high. And 10 years ago, you would have been the highest person I knew in terms of vibration,
Right, so
right?
I have to do some more stuff to get above 600, right?
there is a ceiling that people create. People create what I call a glass ceiling. In actual fact, I have a program called a glass ceiling breakthrough program.
Right.
And what happens is we get to a stage and we think this is as far as I can go, us mere mortals, or
That's
because I'm not
yeah.
self-actualized yet, I can't go further.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what this tells me is you've
Mm,
managed to get there. You've managed to get up to 600, which is our presence. It's actually about peace. It's a great number.
I'm liking pace.
700 is the first stage of awareness and enlightenment. So it's still about 100 off that, which is not a lot. However, for 12 months since I did this, there hasn't been a change. And so there are what I call sabotages that go on, and these are subconscious. If you knew what they were, you would change them. It's the
Oh, yeah,
subconscious ones
get rid
that
of the
get us
block,
all the time.
Barry. Get rid of the block. So you're telling
So
me
what
this
I
is
do,
feeling that people have, right? And we
yeah, so
you
I
said it.
created a technique. I created a technique called light body alignment, where we can clear these blocks in a matter of seconds so that people can move forward. So that's
Mm,
part of the reason the 6-month program, we might clear 200 of these blocks that are stopping you from actually moving forward.
mm.
And so there's something for you. I'm going to suggest there is some, and your frequency, by the way, which was at 75, is at 90. And I think you might have hit 90 at some point. So your frequency, your ability to manifest is really good. Like people tell you what a great manifester you are,
Yeah.
right? I'm also
They
letting
tell
you
me
know
I'm
that
lucky. They tell me I'm lucky.
yeah, yeah. But I'm also going to suggest to you that that you could manifest a lot more than you're doing now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That's the difference.
Absolutely. Well,
So
I
this is why it's not comparative to other people.
and you know what, just on that, it's interesting because I'm working with my coach, William Whitecloud, and just last week, there's always been this awareness that I have a scout role. Like there's the pioneers, there's the people back in the villages, they're always going to be in the village, and then there's the pioneers who are, trying new things, and then there's the scouts who find the things that tell the pioneers. And it was just last week where we had this conversation, and he's like, gosh, you're now the sign. You're the sign that the scouts follow. Like you've now escalated in this kind of hierarchy of, and it's like, oh, I've never had that awareness of someone being, the sign. Not that I'm the sign. I am the Messiah. All I can hear now is Monty Python. But I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is it's interesting that I also received at that time, there was a block which was not receiving because for me, it was around supporting others, helping others, bringing others, and seeing that as an obligation rather than letting myself receive and go and find things and allow others just to see the journey without attachment of their journey and their experience. And so being empowering people rather than supporting people. And that for me has been a very big revelation for my personal journey in the last,
And I
couple of
and
years.
I believe what you're saying is true. It's no longer about one person coming to save us. This idea of waiting for someone to come and save us all,
Yep.
but we're it. So it is about, in a way, seeing yourself as the Messiah or as
Mm,
someone who's aware or someone who's conscious and owning that, owning your own divinity
mm,
so that you can bring light to the rest of the world. That's what you're here for.
yeah.
So
And
don't
all that kind of
discount
like I
how important
am.
you are.
I
Yeah,
am God, it
yeah.
seems being a good Catholic girl, it feels sacrilegious to say I am God. But the reality is in the Bible, from what I can see and listen, watching Neville Goddard's works, like I think it says, you are God, I am God 76 times. Like the
That's
message
that.
is
And
there,
it
right?
says you could do, even Jesus came out and said, you can do more than what I've done, like I'm just showing you this.
Yeah.
So when the energy of the planet is increased, which enables our vibration to increase,
Mm.
our ability to do miracles has actually increased as well.
So I can get past 90%, hey Barry?
Easily. But that is not difficult. That is not difficult.
I feel like that.
But it's recognizing and the subconscious blocks and making a choice to move past those blocks. And you're on that path. Like, and my sense is that at some point that's going to happen for you with or without anyone's help.
Yeah.
Like you're sort of determined enough, I'm going to do this regardless. I guess what I do and what other people do is we just provide a way of speeding up the process a bit.
Well, you
You know,
mentioned that there was something obvious, a block that was obvious to you.
I think it's about number one is about you owning your own divinity.
Mm,
I think that's
that
the
sits well.
like that's it. And so the way I'll do this, and this will actually be good for everyone listening. We'll actually clear this one. Okay. So can you just say for me, I acknowledge my own divinity.
I acknowledge my own divinity.
Okay, yeah, that's the stress. Well, I muscle tested that, and that's a stress. All right. So there's a part of you that, yeah, I do, but not fully. Can you get that?
Oh, absolutely. I feel the Catholic girl going,
Yeah.
divine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
who are you? Okay. So notice we haven't used the word God. We're just owning the God part, that divine part within you, which we're made in God's image. Our divine aspects are there. I've got a doctorate of divinity, and I did a master theology degree at a Catholic university. So I
Okay. You know
understand
what?
the
You
whole
know this
Catholic,
stuff. Okay, good.
right?
And
And
I
some
love the
people make
sense
that
that
okay. Like
God,
we're not here.
universe, source, whatever,
Yeah,
however you define it, right?
whatever people need to define
Yeah.
it as. But really acknowledging your own divinity, when we can do that, it
Mm,
really releases it from the shackles of let's play small, let's play small.
mm,
And what's really cool is we're not going to clear this for Jane now. Everyone listening, if you choose to, you can get it cleared yourself just by listening, because the work that I do goes beyond time and space. It's fifth dimensional work. So
mhm,
in clearing Jane, we're actually going to clear anyone who's listening to this as well.
mhm,
And as a practical thing, we've had people listening to the Clear Blocks to Money Flow, which was one of the courses I have on Life Vision Academy. Within 20 minutes, this one guy whose parents had disowned him 50 years earlier for being gay rang him up and gifted him $30,000. With
useful.
listening to a tape of clearing these blocks. So this has a real tangible effect. I'm
Mm.
just letting you know for the people listening that it's going to have an impact on you as
We are
well.
connected to all things, right?
We are connected. So the way I'm going to do this, it looks like we're just going to shift so you might just feel what's actually happening within your body.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just shifting the vortex. And so we're making an alignment. We're not fixing anything. We're aligning your body the way it's meant to go, whatever that is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll get you to say again, I acknowledge my divinity.
I acknowledge my divinity.
How does it feel saying that now?
Less. There's definitely less tension. I feel like um in my feet and in my calves, I feel kind of like movement. Like I feel like it's wanting to come up.
So the sorts of words people use would be like lighter, does feel different, not sure how. I can hear it in your voice. The voice sounded different,
Mm-hmm.
like you really actually believe it rather than just saying the words. And one of the things with this is recognizing that what I can do is help shift the energy associated with this, right? That's what we've done when we're doing that. Your role is to let go of the old stories, the old Catholic stories, the stories you're not good enough, the stories of who you think you are, and to actually let those go.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things we recommend, and we've only just started doing that this year, is that statement. You don't need to repeat it to believe it anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's clear that will hold forever now.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be good to write that out, put it up on a wall somewhere, so that when you go into the old Catholic background or wherever it is, you go, hang on, I acknowledge my divinity. That's really what's true for me now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great way of letting go of the old story. The other thing that's came up only this year in some of my journaling and in developing this year is one of the recommendations is don't do anything that you have an addiction to for the next 3 days. So if it's drinking, smoking, wherever it is, avoid that, because what can happen is you can take this addiction about playing small and take it into the other addiction. So it almost feeds it, put it somewhere else. So we're trying to avoid you taking the playing small part and putting it somewhere in the addiction.
Right, got it.
So just for a couple of days, just eat healthy, drink healthy, all that sort of stuff, and have written up somewhere, I acknowledge my divinity,
So
and just see how your life changes.
this feeling that I have is that there's in my legs there's kind of like movement, but there's a blockage coming up. Does that mean there's still a blockage, or is it cleared?
Yeah, they're still there. I mean, people sort of say, just do, let's clear enlightenment in one session.
Right.
And we could do it, and then probably our electrical systems would probably go like, what's going on here? And we maybe wouldn't cope with it. So,
Right.
I've been clearing now myself for well over 30 years, and I'm still clearing stuff. This is a life journey. And someone said to me the other day, she said, "Oh, I've cleared 200 things with you this year. Like, I think I'm done." And I said, "Well, I've done that for 20 years."
So we
And
all
she
have
went, "Oh,
these little things that just
yeah,
are underlaying the onion skin, and we just pull them off because we've had a
yeah."
life of many experiences, right?
But she said, "That's why you're at the space you're in." And I go, "Well, I guess it's true. Like, we do get somewhere. We don't, it's not like, oh, I'm still working on myself.
Mm,
It's just part of life, part of that journey." And I saw Louise Hay getting worked on at 84 years of age, and I thought that was a great example.
yeah,
She said, "I've still got a pulse. I've still got issues and stuff to deal with and
yeah.
things like that."
That's amazing. Okay, so all right, so what we've kind of experienced here is that where the world is at the moment, how the Hawkins scale and how your vision school frequency scale is, and how some simple techniques. And as I said, I'm going to share some of the information when people can contact you. Actually, we'll just say it's exitthematrix.today/Dr. Barry, so we have it there. 30 people are watching this, so I'll put a link there. But just in my kind of like the final kind of thoughts in this is that people who are feeling this unease at the moment is actually reflective internally, but it's reflective externally as well. The frequency of the world is actually, there is this unease and unrest. And I think I heard yesterday that within a 24-hour news period, we receive more trauma news than we would have in an entire year 20 years ago. Like we're being bombarded with all of this negative stuff. So it's really about choosing that you are going to, be someone of a higher vibration and be, internally, and be someone in a higher frequency externally, and watch that kind of abundance, appear for you.
With the frequency, what's really interesting is when I measured all the frequency originally, the average on the planet at the moment for frequency is still only about 25%.
Okay.
Like, I thought it'd be 50, and Spirit's gone, like, it's 25. And I've argued with this. And when I looked at why, there is still such a large, there's a whole group of people who have a frequency less than 10 on
Mm,
the planet. Right? That pulls everything
mm,
down.
mm,
And the two groups that they associate with, one is fundamental religions and one is military.
mm,
And you've got large groups where people are not allowed to think for themselves.
mm, mm,
And so both of those groups, to me, there needs to be, I think, a transformation in how we do defense, a transformation in how we do religion,
mm,
so that people can take personal responsibility and raise their own frequency.
mm.
And rather than, don't listen to anyone, just listen to me, do what I tell you to do, don't have any individual thought. Where
What
my sense is, make up your own mind. If you like this,
exactly
terrific.
right.
If you don't, terrific.
Assume that you are. um, I'm gonna stop this interview now because I really appreciate it. I think I've got a lot of information now that I can help me kind of put some thoughts together on this kind of awareness stage. And what if, with your permission, I'm going to have you back, and we might run an experiment when I get to my research around the awareness stage, some experiments that people can do, and we might even do, a couple of talks around this blocking, unblocking, etc.
Sure.
But
So I'll just mention lifevisionacademy.com. So if anyone's looking, where's Barry's work,
yeah,
the easiest place is to find it, lifevisionacademy.com. That's the only thing
and
you need to know.
and what I'm
Contact
going
me via there, etc.
what I'm going to do now is I'd love to have a continued conversation about where we are in the world now. So I appreciate you. I'm going to say part 2 is coming. I'm just going to turn off the recording. We'll go straight there. Thanks, Barry. Okay, we will go straight there. Okay.
We're going to have to make this another time because I've got visitors, so I'm going to have to.
Okay. Do you want to do 5 minutes on it?
You can do 5 minutes, yes, for sure.
Okay, Barry. Part 1, we had an incredible conversation, frequency, vibration of the world. We're sitting here in 2025. We've got geopolitical tensions, we've got changes and all of these things coming out of the US. We've got, at the moment, Chinese frigates off Sydney doing live testing.
Wow.
There's all of these things happening. Have you had any insights or information, or can you receive information about, what is happening in the world, and are we at a kind of, what's the big shift at the moment that's going to take us from 204 to 230?
Well, I think the biggest shift we're going to have is happening. And one of the key things I think we could be finding in the next few years is 400 years ago, people still thought the world was flat.
Mm,
And then we came together in little villages and things like that. And then we found that there was other people outside our village. And then eventually we got to the whole country, which was flat. Then we started traveling overseas. And guess what? The world's actually round.
yeah.
And we've had this expansion of where we're going. Now, to think that the world is round is the end of the story, to me, is as naive as the caveman 10,000 years ago thinking their local village was the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so where we're moving to now is, I think we're actually moving off planet. I think the logical thing is, there's all these reports now about UFO sightings and there's Congress stuff going on. And it feels to me like we're actually getting prepared for something. Like there's just
Mm,
hints of what's going on.
mm,
And part of this, I think, is recognizing that we actually belong to a bigger thing than just Earth itself.
yeah. Okay.
Now,
Interesting.
that's going to shake a lot of people up, and a lot of people are scared about that because the nature is they're just going to be frightened.
Sure.
Whereas I think I see a much more benevolent people here supporting us who will become public, and a lot of the stuff that's happened that have closed us down will all of a sudden become earthlings. It's like when I meet someone overseas and they're from Perth, we're virtually neighbours because we're both from Australia.
Yeah.
So I can see this. There seems to be something bubbling up, and it may be, and sometimes it's a catastrophe, like it appears to be a catastrophe, like the COVID shut everything down. What that did to me showed me how well the planet can look after itself if it needs to,
Mm-hmm.
because it started coming green again really quickly, and then we've sort of gone backwards again a little bit. But there is something definitely happening now, whether it's going to be that or something else. But we are in this process of change, and it feels to me that it's almost like we're going to divide the planet into those people who are aware and those people who are not. And we'll just keep to ourselves. Like there's a lot of unaware people out there that I know nothing about because it's not part of my world, and I'm not part of their world.
Mm-hmm.
So we're almost a line in the sand's getting drawn about who are we and where are we going.
Okay.
And I think the big change is going to happen it is happening, and they say by 2030, all the information I've had will be by 2030. I think it's going to be before that. This moving from 3D to 5D, moving from competition into cooperation, moving from fear into love. All this is what we're talking about when we say 3D to 5D.
So you're getting
And
anything
we're in
for
the
now,
process of this.
for like 2025? Is there anything that's obvious that's
Well, the big one has been this jump in the vibration is really going to rattle up what's normal.
right?
So, as I think about that first quarter of a century from 2000, 2025. I thought, wow, we've had so much happen. And yet the numbers didn't go up that much.
Yeah.
In the next few years, we're going to have constant increases in what's going on. Now, no one, even when I talk to Spirit, they cannot put a date on this is going to happen on the 25th of February. Like, it's just doesn't operate that way because it's still connected to our group consciousness.
Mm,
So the best I believe we can do is stay positive, number one, support each other through these changes, because some of them are a bit tough for people, and I know people are
yeah.
hurting. So we need to be showing compassion and supporting each other through these changes.
Beautiful.
And then when they do happen, don't go into fear. Know that these changes are ultimately going to support this planet.
Mm. Wow, that's great. Oh, I appreciate that. Well, thank you. I'm glad I asked and we had this little part too. Because I think that positive expectation and knowing that there is a path forward when fear and doubt and darkness comes is obviously something to hold on to. There's that light, that vision for us. So appreciate it. So thanks, Barry. I really
You're
appreciate you
welcome, Joe.
joining me and helping me explore this book. And yeah, I can't wait to check back in with you.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate all of your time. It's amazing.
You're welcome.
And I can't
Um,
wait to click in with you in the future and see where this all goes.
yeah, totally. It is fascinating.
I
So
absolutely